Meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen, Monday, September 21st. This meeting is available by remote participation via Zoom. The meeting ID is 924-3933-6889. The passcode is 507434, and the phone number is area code 646-558-8656. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. The meeting is also accessible, as I said, by remote participation. The town is looking for volunteers for several committees. For example, the Finance Committee is looking for one individual. The Zoning Board of Appeals is looking for one associate member. There are 3 open positions on the Council on Aging, the Cable Advisory Committee, the Energy Advisory Committee, and the Cultural Council and the Historical Commission, and the Historic District Commission, which is separate from the Historical Commission, all are looking for volunteers. Further announcement, the Apple Harvest Road Race is this year is going to be virtual. So I would just so that people know about it, see the signs around, I'd encourage people to check that out on the internet and perhaps participate in a different way this year. Okay, so now I'd like to convene a joint meeting between the Planning Board and the West Newbury Board of Selectmen.
Hey, Mike McCarron, are you on here?
Yeah, Mike.
I'm here.
I mean, is that the proper way of doing it, or do we have to like?
No, well, I think the statute says is that the Board of Selectmen shall schedule a meeting jointly with the Planning Board. So it's a Board of Selectmen's meeting, number one.
Mhm.
And at that joint meeting, the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Planning Board in attendance shall vote on an alternate member. And that means that there doesn't necessarily have to be a quorum of the Planning Board in order to have a meeting. So
That's
the way Archie did, basically announced it, is enough to begin it. They don't have to go into a separate
Okay.
meeting of the Planning Board because it's under the Board of Selectmen's schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
all right. I'll take your notice under advisement, but just for the record, I disagree. I think it's a joint meeting. That's how you phrased it in your letter. So it's not an agenda item on the Board of Selectmen's meeting. But I don't want to make a big deal about it because it's not the important thing that we have to do here today.
Okay, so
I would make a motion that we make Wendy Reed a full member of the Planning Board.
I'll second that. Thank you, Glenn.
Discussion.
I would say that
This-
we have to define the length of that
Yeah, it's to
term.
the next. It's to the next. Isn't it to the next election, Mike?
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And
That's
then
it.
there'll be another vote to have a separate meeting to fill out Richard Bridges' term at the next
Yeah.
election. So she will serve till the first Monday in May of 2021.
At which time she'll run for office if she chooses to, just like anybody else would.
Right.
Correct. Do we know if, it doesn't matter too much, I'm just curious, do we know when Richard's term was supposed to expire?
2022.
Okay.
I'll just say that although she's been an associate member, not a full voting member up to now, having Wendy Reed on the planning board has been fantastic. She offers great insight. She's incredibly knowledgeable. Her experience with the Conservation Commission is helpful. And it's helpful not only to the planning board, but to applicants, because we're better informed about important issues that come before us on the board. So I'm amazed because she gives up so much of her personal time for the benefit of the town. I'm very pleased that she was willing to take this opportunity. And just for the record, I fully support her as a full voting member of the planning board.
Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, I see the the fact that Wendy's on the Concom as being, pretty a positive, an opportunity to contribute something that insights that the others on the planning board wouldn't have on a lot of issues. So I think that's a very valuable combination.
I'd say more flattering things, but I can see that she's got her headphones in, and I don't want her to get all swell-headed.
Okay, if there is no further discussion, I would, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Ray Cook, aye.
Parker, aye.
Ann Bardine, aye.
Tim Cronin,
Ryan
aye.
Murphy, aye. Sorry, Tim.
We heard
Tim
you,
Cronin, aye. I get to vote twice when he does a great job.
And did Glenn weigh in on this?
I didn't hear.
Glenn,
Glenn,
you-
Maybe
Glenn's muted.
Kemper, aye. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I thought I did it right after Archie. Thank you. Great.
okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you for doing it.
I'd like to
Well
thank
done.
I want to thank the selectmen for this, having us in. Nice to see you all. And with that, I think the planning board members can go off to get some
Yes.
dinner, I guess.
Yes,
Or
sir.
stay. It's a public meeting.
I know, but
I would say
you
go
can
get
stay-
some.
you can stay here for a good time,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got some good telephone pole moving talk. That's
okay. Enjoy.
Well,
Thank
this
you,
is being
people. Thank you
recorded. I
very
may
much.
watch it later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, have a good night. See you, Brian.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys. Thank you.
Our next item of business is a public hearing. I would make a motion to open the public hearing on removal of a telephone pole on Farm Lane.
Second, Kemper?
All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Angus or Mike, can you just give us the Cliff Notes version of this?
Yeah, I can. Is essentially is that they're relocating a pole on Farm Lane about 27 feet in order to basically serve the new middle high school. That's basically it. It's moving about 27 feet to the west down Farm Lane, to be across from the property. And
So
according
it's
to,
it's in that median between the parking lot and Farm Lane, is that where?
no, it's right at the edge of the property line with the Pawtucket School and the neighbor behind them. And they're
Okay.
moving it down closer towards the school.
Okay,
It's shown on the plan that's accompanying it. I don't know if there's a representative from National Grid in attendance. There might be. If they would want to talk about it.
I see.
Yes. Sorry for cutting you off there. My name is Paulo. I'm a representative from National Grid. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Well, the first thing would be, is there anybody from that area that might have questions.
I do see a 363 number there.
That would be probably the first thing that we would ask, because the public, it's a hearing. Did we get anything correspondence about it?
We did not.
Okay,
Other than, I should say, from the superintendent and the project architect who have emphasized the importance of this.
I would say that if we don't have any questions or anything like that, I would just move that we would, what happens, Mike? Do we move give permission that they?
Well, you move to approve the petition of National Grid to relocate a pole on Farm Lane.
That's my motion.
Well done, Mike.
That's my motion.
Second,
Further discussion, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
oh, Parker, aye.
Okay, the
Well,
next,
Glenn, from now on, you should always go before me because K comes before P.
okay.
You got
Just the next step, guys, is that I'll prepare the petition, the approval, and I just need signatures. And I'll leave copies in the selectman's office so you can come by and sign that. That'll be there for tomorrow.
Great.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Our next item C is a request for authorization to apply for the Edgar J. Byrne Memorial Justice Grant. I don't know if the chief is available. Do you know more about this, Angus?
I don't know more than what's in the packet, as you,
Okay.
they, he set out a couple of different options and what they might like to apply for. But I did not get a chance to connect with him today on whether he has a decision on which of the items he'd like to pursue.
It looks like it's pretty.
No local match required.
The application is due a week from today, so there isn't much time on that. Are you going to have to do any legwork on this?
No, his department has done all of the work to this point.
Stephanie,
The question is,
how about you, Stephanie? How about you? Do you have to deal with anything on this or no? Okay.
No, I don't believe I have to do anything up until that.
Okay.
so I guess there's a question here, and I don't know if the chief was looking for us to comment or not. I don't know where we would have any insights as to whether it's more advantageous to get the 4 laptops for the cruisers or to apply for the fingerprint scanner. From a money standpoint, it looks like the laptops have more value. So, we'd extract more value from the grant opportunity if we went for the laptops.
I Agreed, but I think it should be up to the chief to decide what he thinks is more valuable to the
Yeah,
department.
exactly. What do they need more? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do we need to make a motion to allow the chief to make? Okay, I make a motion to allow the chief to apply, the chief of police, Chief Duran, to apply for a grant through the Edward J. Byrne JAG program for equipment for the police department, either 4 laptops for computers or a fingerprint scanner at his judgment.
Kemper, second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, the next was just a brief update on the Board of Health. At our last meeting, we had recommended that the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend that the Board of Health take up the possibility of establishing some sort of penalty for not wearing masks in public situations where social distancing couldn't be accomplished, and they determined that they did not feel that basically it hasn't been that big of an issue in West Newbury, and that positive persuasion rather than negative reinforcement with fines was a better way to go. I don't know. That's what I took from it.
One other consideration is that the police and the health agent have the authority under the governor's order without the adoption of a local fine schedule. So in the event that they did feel that any incident rose to a level that fines were justified, they already have that authority.
And there's already a fine structure, a dollar amount, right?
That's correct. Although Mike has advised that in the event that fines were to be issued, that they not exceed the $300 statutory threshold, even though the governor's order refers to, in some instances, a fine as high as $500. He's cautioned the chief and Paul that just to avoid any potential of whether that's enforceable, to have a informal cap of $300.
Okay. Next item. Update from the Board of Health regarding potential COVID-related Halloween planning. And I guess the plan is to wait and see what the Commonwealth's recommendations are. Is that correct, Angus?
That's correct.
Yeah. Anything that we need to just to remind people, so far and still on, the special town meeting is planned for Saturday, October 17th at 10 a.m. with the rain date the next day on Sunday at 10 a.m. Hopefully we don't have to do that. Is there anything we need to mention right now, Angus, or no?
No, we did have a meeting earlier today that Wayne convened, that Chief Dwyer, myself, Mike, Casey, Paul were all part of, and everyone felt that the June meeting was very successful in terms of the logistics and layout. So some of what we talked about today is just what to anticipate in terms of attendance. We're going to set up somewhat fewer stakes in the field, just based on we don't think we're going to get as high of an attendance in October as we got in June. We're coordinating the sound system, and we're tracking all of those expenses as reimbursable under the CARES Act. We talked about whether we want to do another town-wide mailing like we did back in June, that would go to every household to let them know about the date and logistics of town meeting. And I think we will end up doing another mailing, just to err on the side of making sure people know about it, even though, we don't think there's anything on the warrant that rises to a, great level of controversy, but we think obviously the school stabilization article is of great consequence, and we want voters to be sure that we want to be sure that voters know that the town meeting is going forward.
What's the cost for a mail-in like that to go out to the entire town, Angus?
The postage is about $500. It's a little bit more than $500. We don't want to get into the same situation as the last time with the last minute folding and
Oh, no.
so I told Casey we really want a decision this week so that we can space that work out and have it done more by staff during the day rather than a last minute crunch. So the copying, we didn't track that cost because it's on our own copier, but the postage was a little bit over $500.
Okay, thanks.
Angus, shouldn't we also mention that that's something we will be asking for reimbursement for from the COVID funds?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, hopefully it runs as well as it did in the spring, which was spectacular. And the sound was better outside than it usually is inside, which is amazing. Presentation of the next item, presentation of the preliminary estimate of the FY21 tax rate with several different scenarios. And that's on, for anyone that has a copy of the booklet for tonight, that is on page 47.
So, we've got this recap model, which I know we've talked about before, but it's exactly the same as the tax rate recap that goes to DOR after the tax rate classification hearing in November. And so it's a very good model, and we have it in an Excel format so we can edit any input and see how that affects the bottom line. So we are, I've said before, but I'll say again, the assumptions we're making are on new growth and townwide assessed value, as well as the non-tax revenue receipts, all of which play into the both the tax rate and the levy limit. And so what I've done here with this table is to really boil that down to its essence, which is if town meeting approves or does not approve each of three basic three articles that either are or may be on the fall town meeting warrant, what we estimate the tax rate would be. So all of the numbers are subject to change as the values get finalized with the Board of Assessors and the Department of Revenue. But we feel pretty good about the numbers that you have in front of you as being, they're certainly the best estimates possible at this stage of the process. So the three articles that I've built in scenarios for, one would be the approval of all of the budget amendments proposed in Article 3. The net effect of all of those amendments together would be a reduction of $153,423. That second is Article 2, which the Selectmen have proposed a transfer from school stabilization of $404,993. And the third item, which is listed next on the agenda, is something the town has not done before, but is an option available to you if you choose to take it, which would be to include an article on the warrant to transfer overlay surplus for the express purpose of reducing the FY21 tax rate. And so you can see for each of those, if they all happen, if none of them happen, what you see in the tax rate. Ranging from a 6.5% increase if none of those things happened to a 1.2% increase if all of those things happened.
And Angus, I have one question on the overlay. In the past, I know that there was a specific amount of overlay for each fiscal year, but now now it's kind of lumped together. Is that correct? That this
Yes,
is
that was a change of the
several years.
I believe that was a change in the Municipal Modernization Act, that it used to be tracked each year was a separate account on the chart of accounts, and now it's a blended, consolidated amount, which is the overlay amount.
Yeah, so my question was, are we you feel that the Board of Assessors isn't taking too much out of there? I guess that's my
No, Meredith's recommendation was that the town maintain a balance of between 150 and 170. And even after the declaration of surplus of 220,000, that still leaves a balance of 170, I believe.
okay.
So this is essentially an accumulation of all the excess overlay going back forever. Is that correct?
Not forever, but since the last time surplus was declared.
Okay, so it has been
you know,
sometime in the past. Okay.
yeah, it's been building up for a while.
Yeah.
So what is the town in any situation where
They're looking for a rebate. That's what
one of the
people are looking.
utilities is in litigation with with communities about rebates? That some of those things were like 15, 20 years in the past. Are any of those still up in the air related to the town?
I know that the 150 to 170 range is intended to take into account the potential exposure from any either pending or potential abatements.
I think the answer to that is no, Archie. And we probably did this like 3 or 4 years ago.
We did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is only 3 or 4 years accumulation then.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a set amount. We have to, the overlay district is a percentage of something. I don't want to speak out of school, but it's a set amount every year, and it's based on your total number of your taxes. It's DOR set. So we have money there just in case anybody needs a abatement. But I feel very comfortable keeping 150 to 170 in there without a doubt. So I would definitely. Generally, we in past years we've just zeroed it back into free cash. But I think it's a good opportunity to use it to bring the tax rate down.
Glenn, how do you feel about opening the warrant?
You had to ask me that, didn't you? Because I was the one that's saying let's not open it. For this particular thing, I think something because it was a unique situation with personnel leaving the assessor's office. Maybe this was like overseen or whatever. But I think this is a unique opportunity to be able to decrease people's taxes. So I think I would open it just for this particular thing, not for anything else.
Angus, how is the Finance Committee feel about getting a new getting a new article in that situation?
So I guess I'll find out tomorrow night, but I will tell you that when they met last Tuesday, I gave them a preview of this. It was just the prior Thursday, so 2 Thursdays ago that I met with the Board of Assessors. We talked about this, and they said that if I requested that they would release the funds. So I said, well, I'm requesting. And so they voted right then and there to release 220,000. I had not expected that to happen so, quickly. And so it was just the following Tuesday that I met with the Finance Committee last week. And I did tell them that that had happened and that that was kind of new and not hadn't been anticipated. And that obviously I didn't know what the Board of Selectmen would do tonight, but I did tell the Finance Committee last Tuesday that I would be writing this up and presenting it to the board as an option. And that if the board chose to add it to the warrant, that it could be part of the that it would be part of what the FinCom's asked to review. So when I was working with Gary Roberts late last week to finalize the agenda for tomorrow night's Finance Committee meeting, as you may know, Gary is very consistent in not wanting to take things up until they're final. But I did ask him on Friday, do you want to include this on the posted FinCom agenda or not, knowing that we don't know if it's going to be on or not. And he said to go ahead and include it. So they know that there's a good chance that it may be taken up. The Finance Committee has been provided a copy of the same memo that you have in front of you for their packet for tomorrow night. So they have all of the same information. And they obviously understand that, time is of the essence to get their recommendations so that the booklet can be finalized. So I think they'll take it up in good faith tomorrow night if it is added tonight.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Gary over the weekend, and he brought up the excess overlay, and he thought it was a good idea based on that conversation. So I'm sure he's not going to, at least speaking for that one FinCom meeting or member, he's unlikely to object to that. I think he would think that's a good thing.
Hey, if they've given it back, does it automatically go to free cash, or do we need a vote? I can't remember how we did it. Do we need a vote of town meeting to put it into free cash? So you know what I mean? Or do we just need to vote for to reduce the tax rate with it?
If we do nothing at the end of June, it would automatically close to free cash. In the meantime, it's available for appropriation for any lawful purpose. So as you know, town meeting's the only entity that can appropriate. So it could be appropriated this fall. It could be appropriated next spring. But if it is not appropriated, it would automatically lapse to free cash at the end of the fiscal year.
Because they made a vote to let it go out. To release it, I should say. Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Right, and we should also mention that Angus confirmed this with the DOR.
Yeah, it's something that we were aware you could do, but it hadn't happened here. Mike hadn't worked on it. Stephanie said that I don't want to speak for her; she's right here, but that Ipswich has done this in the past during her tenure there. So we kind of knew that you could do it, but we wanted to make 100% sure because obviously, we want to get it right. So yeah, we did confirm with DOR that that is a totally appropriate use of surplus overlay.
Okay, I would make a motion to open the warrant for the sole purpose of adding an additional article related to transferring the overlay surplus to reduce the tax rate.
Kemper, second.
Further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
I'd make a motion to close the warrant.
Hold on, we haven't. You made a motion to open it, but we haven't added anything to it yet. Oh, was that part of your motion, I guess? We opened
Yeah,
it.
it's sort of doing both at the same time, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, can I discuss it then a little bit? I'm sorry, I was waiting for
Okay,
a discussion.
sure, go ahead.
Are we, I'm going to vote yes on this, but we have to watch ourselves that we're using all this money to reduce the tax rate this year, and I think we should. But then next year, it's, we're not going to have all this excess overlay money or things like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? That like next year could look higher in people's minds. We have to make sure that we educate people that we're using a lot of excess money to reduce it. And, this is one-time shots. That this isn't going to be an ongoing thing. That's it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually was thinking the similar thought, thinking, are we kind of building a habit here? If we're not transferring free cash to reduce the tax rate, then we're transferring overlay to reduce the tax rate. And is that sustainable? Obviously, the overlay excess is not sustainable because it's a one-time deal. Maybe it'll come back and maybe it'll occur again in a few years. But yeah, I'm kind of concerned about, are we developing a habit that isn't sustainable?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would just go to free cash, and then we would do something out of it there. So I mean, I think it's being used for a good purpose because it was on the tax rate before, and then so they've been taxed on this. So then the money was there, then it didn't need to be used. So it should go back, I think, in principle, to reduce the tax rate. Not be put-
Absolutely. This was money taken out in anticipation, essentially extra tax money taken out in case people needed an abatement in
Mhm.
and so it wasn't needed. So it wasn't even designed for a specific purpose like paying a DPW salary or anything like that. It was designed strictly for the purpose of abating somebody that had been overtaxed, and now it hasn't been needed. So now, to me, it seems like the perfect use of this money to lower the tax rate.
No, I agree with you totally, but I just wanted to make aware that we're doing a lot of this stuff. So people need to be aware. We just might not have this type of money available next year, and it's going to look like our taxes went up significantly next year if we don't have these offset things to lower it. That's all I was saying. But no, I agree with you, Archie.
The strange thing though is like the article with multiple ups and downs from that Angus put together. The big part of that is that we were essentially paying the district twice, and so that we won't be appropriating the money twice at next annual town meeting. So it actually isn't where it was artificially raised too much, and so we're bringing it down to what when it isn't sort of found money. We actually overcharged ourselves in the spring, and now we realize that problem, and now we're getting some of that money back. That I don't think it isn't that was extra money that we got. We actually just charged ourselves too much.
Yep, that's a good point.
That is true, Archie, but it's important to keep in mind that the amount that we've kind of double raised is because of the school stabilization. So it ties directly to the conversation really between the selectmen and FinCom of what's the right way to manage the school stabilization drawdown. So for instance, in the FY22 budget, let's just say, for example, we draw 300,000 from school stabilization. We would reduce the operating budget by that same 300,000. So your point is correct, but that, once that 300,000 in school stabilization runs out, in however many years, there will be a jump in taxes.
Unquestionably.
Yeah.
Okay, so I vote for it. Kemper, aye.
Parker,
Okay.
So Mike, I just want to make sure that the form of that motion was proper in your mind. Archie had voted to both reopen the warrant to add this article. Is that suitable to you?
Yeah, well, he can reopen my understanding is of his motion was he moved to reopen the article in order to include the article to reduce the tax rate by using the overlay district. So that was all one motion.
Correct.
That was second, and that's what they just voted on.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure before we move on.
Yeah.
So then I make a motion to close it.
Close the warrant, you mean?
Yes.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
So Angus, I don't want to put you on the spot, but but I'm going to. So what is your feeling in terms of if we look at so that anyone listening at home or later on understands what we're discussing here. It's a three-way chart with 1, 2, or 3 possible ways that will impact the tax rate. And one of those we just approved was to which we haven't approved, we put on the warrant, but we haven't decided whether we want to vote for it, is to use overlay money to reduce the tax rate. Another one is something that was turned down dramatically by the voters at the annual town meeting to take out an additional approximately 400,000 from the school stabilization fund and to use that to pay down the tax rate. The final item reduces the tax rate 153,000 from, again, money that was sort of doubly charged to the school stabilization account. And so the net effect of that plus some articles that are actually using a bit of that money is a net would be a net reduction of 153,000. So adding those 3 items up together, it's 660, about a little more than $750,000 that would go towards, if we approved all 3 of those items, toward reducing the tax rate, which would mean if these were all approved by the voters at the town meeting, an increase in the tax rate of 1.2%. If all 3 of these failed, it would be an increase in the tax rate of 6.5%. And so that's the issue at hand. Do we want to go with 1, 2, or 3 of these items? My feeling is that so that I think everyone should weigh in on this. I would approve Article 3, which is the 150, ultimately a net $153,000 reduction. I would recommend approval of the overlay of which will decrease the taxes 220, and I think I would take recommend using approximately half of Article 2. That's what I would vote to transfer from school stabilization approximately 200,000. So with the net effect that we would have approximately a 2% increase or 2.5% increase in a year that has, not for everybody, but for a lot of people for some people has been a financial nightmare. So that's my opinion, and I'd like to hear what everyone else has to say.
What was your
I was thinking along similar lines, Archie. I mean, I don't, because of the appearance of the overlay surplus now, I don't personally think that it's necessary or even prudent to go for the 404, or call it $405,000 from school stabilization transfer. I think part of what we want to avoid is at some point in the future having a huge step increase, and it's inevitable that there are going to be increases, but avoiding a big step at a later date is not is I think something we should focus on. And so by leaving more in school stabilization, it allows us to smooth the rate of increase more.
ditto?
Okay, so what do you feel about Article 2? Take nothing, take some, or obviously no one wants to take all of it. So do you want to take some or none?
Well, so yeah, so looking at the table, If this of course assumes that they're approved by voters at town meeting, but so if Article
If they don't, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. But sort of going into this for the plan. So if we took if Article 3 were approved and the new article for the overlay surplus transfer were approved and nothing else, and not anything from school stabilization, then it looks like it would be a 4% increase. So, and that's pretty high. Of course, it does. We did vote for an override. So, nobody should be entirely surprised to see a large step increase or a larger increase than we historically or recently historically have had. So if we did 200,000, where does that put it? I'd have to do the math there, but is that around 2% then? Or it'll probably be a little bit more than a 2% increase.
In round numbers, 100,000 translates to about 10 cents on the tax rate.
Okay.
So, and it's also, I think it's good to keep in mind that in this current fiscal year 21, the voters have already voted to put into school stabilization 328.6. So the transfer that was approved in June of 947 is about 83,000, or about 80,000 less that they're taking out than what they've already put in. So that means the current year taxpayer, if there is no more school stabilization fund appropriated this year, is actually putting more money, into that fund than they're taking out in the current year, even though this is the first year we're actually incurring costs. So that's not, and when I made that point to the FinCom last Tuesday, they kind of said, I do continue to think that there might be a middle ground between the 247 that was already approved and the 652, which would be the full offset, that they may agree to, although they did not say that last Tuesday.
So, Angus, just looking at the numbers, say it was 100.5 for Article 2. Would that make it approximately 3%, do you think, or something like that? That's what I would say. Just guessing.
Yes, I think you're on the ball.
If you look at this, if you look at the difference between Article 3, yes, and Article 3, no, the difference is 1%, and that is 150,000. So an additional 150,000 would be approximately 1% off of 4%, which would be knock it down to about 3%.
That's right. It's also, this is interesting too, when the Board of Selectmen last December voted its target for the FY21 budget, and it said not to exceed 2% tax rate increase, that was specifically excluding the impact of the new school. So basically, I think any of the bottom three scenarios on this table are generally consistent with that policy objective. Obviously, no one wants to see taxes go up really significantly, but I think that the point that a couple of you have made is correct. People did vote for the override. They knew that that was going to come at a cost, and there's only so long that we can offset that impact. And since this is the first year the town is actually incurring costs from the school, I think it would make sense that some of that tax increase start to be felt this year, so that it's not quite as abrupt in future years, beginning next year when we expect the full debt to have been issued for the school. So we expect that cost to roughly double for FY22 compared to FY21.
So Rick or Glenn, how do you feel about the school stabilization? Do you want to do 0 or 100 or 150 or 200 or what do you think?
Well, I guess I had assumed that we were going to, before this the overlay surplus transfer article came up, I had assumed that we were going to get to town meeting and end up trying to negotiate a number that was somewhere in between. And now the overlay surplus transfer is a number that's somewhere in between. And I guess my inclination would be to zero out Article 2 and try to put some time into thinking about how to ramp, how to use the school stabilization funds to create a smooth, relatively smooth ramp, so that 6 years out or so, when we're no longer seeing the benefit of the accumulated school stabilization funds, that we haven't gotten there with one huge step increase.
One thing to consider, one of the reasons I sort of picked, why they picked 6 or 7 years, simply the idea that there's always going to be some inflation. There's always going to be some new growth. So at a certain point, some of that takes some of the sting off of the increase in the budget always goes up. So the amount of the override as a percentage of the total budget will diminish through time.
Understood. Oh, makes sense. Yeah.
You there?
Yeah. Well,
what is the FinCom thinking? Because I'd hate for us to come up with, spend all this time and talk about it, and then they come up with some number, and what happens on town meeting floor happens on town meeting floor again, where they're proposing something different than we are.
They've already all disapproved of the, I think I saw that in the minutes from the last meeting. They unanimously disapproved of the school stabilization transfer.
They did disapprove of the 404,000, and immediately after that vote, I tried to interject. Do you want to consider some lesser amount? It was clear that the chair wanted to move on to other business, so they did. As I said a few minutes ago, my gut tells me that there is some number that they would probably agree to, but I don't know that. And at last week's meeting, they didn't say that. That's just based on some conversations I had, over the summer after the vote at town meeting. And I do think, as I said a few minutes ago, that, when I made the point, Stephanie, I don't recall, but I think it was maybe closer to the end of the meeting that I pointed out that we've actually put more money into stabilization this budget year, 328.6 in, 247 out. So even in the current year, if we don't take any more out, we're basically putting money into the bank, even though we're having expenses. I think that is kind of persuasive to even add 80,000. But I don't know. Obviously, I can't speak for them at all. But they'll meet tomorrow night. I think that if the selectmen arrive at a different number tonight than the 404, I think the FinCom will consider that. I think it would be very much better and I know that the moderator certainly would agree, to have a united front on this. And I have suggested that we look at an extra meeting, joint meeting with the Selectmen and FinCom, just like we would do before every town meeting, and potentially, next Monday. I've sent out a poll late today to the FinCom to see their availability. But if we could get everyone together, that would be the best outcome. I don't, and I don't know if we can, but I think it would be much better to have the town leadership aligned on a number.
So that's an interesting idea, is to basically zero it out for this year, have the school stabilization transfer exactly equal the contribution this year. So, and that would be an additional roughly $80,000, you said.
That's right.
Archie, what do you think of that?
Okay, it just means we're not, that's okay, because we are using approximately, that would mean if we 80 plus the 240 that we already appropriated, that would be approximately half of the 650 that was the original intent before everything happened. So,
But what about the overlay?
well, that's,
I think they're assuming that would pass.
Yeah, so it's more than that, Archie. We've done 200 and something dollars in the spring, and then if we say 80, and then plus the overlay, so it's more like.
right, but
That gets you up to about 540 total.
I think the reason why I brought that up is because I think we need to get something. So I'm willing to come down to 80 if that's, or even tell them 100, but we'd like to have them talk so we get something passed, so we don't have the same thing happen at this town meeting, and then it ends up nothing passing.
right, I'll use either number. I don't care, 100 or 80.
Make a motion that we do 80 because that number has meaning behind it, like what Rick said. Like what Rick said.
Whatever, is it 83? What is the actual number, Angus? So we vote it.
Well, so that was going to be my next question. Do you want that amount to be on the printed warrant, or do you want to keep a higher amount on the warrant to preserve your options? Either way is fine. And I'll do that. It's 328.6 minus 247,897, I believe, which is 80,703.
I would say have that number.
Let's not make it complicated. If we have,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, just go with that number. I mean, I think, it seems to me that the overlay surplus is going to pass. I would fall out of my chair if that didn't pass. There'd be no good reason for it not to pass. So then if we go in, in unison, on the same page as the FinCom, it would just work better, I think. Assuming the FinCom will accept that number, and you said,
if the FinCom accepts that, nobody will get up and complain about things. No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because if they don't accept that number, then sure as heck they were going to accept 100. You know what I mean? It's not like we're lowballing and they said, "Oh, bummer," they would have accepted 150. I think if we have reasoning behind it and it zeroes itself out, like we talked about earlier, I think that number has some meaning. That the reason why we're doing it.
I don't think we want to have a higher number, and then there's 2 or 3 numbers, and then
Exactly.
the voters don't understand it when that happens.
Nope.
So it's actually 80,953.
I'd make a motion for that to be that amount.
80,953.
for the amount to be, so that we define it, so what we're saying is, so this is where we approve, Article 2, the money to be taken out of the school stabilization account to lower the tax rate. And
Correct.
so that's been motioned and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, so let's go with Article 3. I would make a motion to approve Article 3 as listed, with the net effect of raise and appropriate a negative $153,423.
I'll second.
Discussion is, Angus, any of those items that you want to further clarify, or things that any of the other selectmen want to know about? I'm pretty good with it. You had discussed most of them before previously.
Yeah, the only one that I added since the last meeting was on the unemployment insurance. At this moment, we do not have any pending claims where we have any significant monetary exposure. There is one claim with potential exposure on the order of $500 or $600, but as a general statement, we've been seeing more claims with COVID than prior. And as people may or may not know, when there's an unemployment claim, it doesn't mean that necessarily someone's left your employment and immediately, filed a claim. They reach back a year. So even if you were a couple of employers ago, you still get notice of the claim. So I don't know that we'll have any exposure, but I think it'd be good to add $7,500 to that operating budget, so we have a line to hit if we do have a claim against us. A successful.
And my only question was, and it's obviously good news. Did some employees drop out of the health plan, or why did it drop so much?
No, that was actually just a miscalculation in the budgeting. We had carried the employer share for everyone in the organization except for the Teamsters, where I had mistakenly carried the full share, the 100% instead of the 65%. And
Oh, okay.
so it just was a different formula for the union than non-union. So we were looking at the actual. So anyhow, we found that mistake.
I guess my other question
And
is,
actually, just one more point, Archie, on that. I did check my math again on that, and I wanted to make sure that even with the reduction, the proposed reduction that you see here, that still does carry almost 30,000 that's above budget, so that if we have a mid-year adjustment, for instance, either a new hire that's at a family plan or
family plan, okay.
so we still do have a pretty healthy contingency in that line, even with the proposed reduction.
Okay. What do you, I guess the final comment is about the park and rec, line item 32, park and rec. That's certainly a big 5,000 to 17,000 is a huge change in their operating budget. What part of that do you think could theoretically be covered by the CARES Act? And
I've looked pretty closely at these invoices from last year to this year, and last year it was $600 to $700 a month for the porta potties, and this year it's multiples of that. And the challenge we've had in trying to pin down how much of that cost is driven by COVID is that there's also been a vendor change, and so it's really
their base pricing is higher than the former vendor that went out of business. So we're going to go ahead and submit the full cost for reimbursement through the CARES Act. And I don't know, maybe we'll get the full amount. But if we're pinned down on what's the proportion of, cost driven by COVID, there is a premium. And I think that somewhere in this packet, you can see the breakdown of pricing on 1 time, 2 time per week cleaning versus daily cleaning. But I think a significant share is going to be reimbursable under the CARES Act. The other factor here is that in prior years, the porta potties have been paid out of the revolving fund, which is supported by fees. Whereas this year, there's not the same user fees. So that's something I've really been pressing the Park and Rec Commission that they need to really come up with what is their opinion on the proportion of costs that ought to be borne by the taxpayer versus the user groups through fees. And I think in the last few years, there's been a trend away from fees, but that's part of the impact we're seeing here is that that's being transferred more to the taxpayer. And I've been really clear with the Park and Rec chair that I know the Selectmen and the Finance Committee are going to have an opinion on that. So this amount assumes that the full porta potty cost is borne by the taxpayer. And I think for budgeting purposes, that's a prudent thing to do because that assures that we can provide the level of service that the Park and Rec wants to provide. But I think that there's a lot of work to do between now and the spring season to really look at what are we charging to whom, what are we generating for fees, and is that fair, not just to the user groups, but also to the taxpayer.
Okay. I agree. I think that's not a discussion for now, but before the budget season, it is.
Yep.
I guess I have a question for just very simple question. So with all the ins and outs and the Green Communities Grant and so forth, so the revolving fund, so the take-home message on the cruiser is that the delta is now down to 4. Is that a pretty hard number?
Yeah, it's actually down to like 3, but we didn't, I put it in a 4 just so there's a little bit of margin and so that we don't have to draw the revolving fund down to 0. This math assumes a $6,000 draw from the revolving fund, and the balance as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago was about 7,300, and it's probably right about the same now. So
what's the lead time when getting one of these vehicles?
I have not asked the chief that, but it's nowhere near the plow truck. It's just a matter of getting the unit fitted up with our, with the custom equipment and striping. I would think not more than 2 to 3 months, but that's a guess.
Okay. So I forgot. I'm sorry. I've been asking so many questions. Did we make a motion on that one article or?
I don't think so.
Just a quick note about the hybrid vehicle. I think from looking at Ford's website, it looks like they've made a total full transition for their police rated vehicles to all hybrids. From what I saw, I didn't dig that deep, but it looks like they won't even be offering non-hybrid vehicles for police rated vehicles in the future, which I thought that's kind of interesting. But I also think it's lucky that we're getting the $5,000 Green Communities Grant this year, because if that's the only option, that I can't imagine that the state's going to offer an incentive.
In the future, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have no choice, then why offer an incentive?
Okay, the motion is to approve Article, that's Article 3, with a net reduction of 153,000. Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye. Glenn's
Kemper,
mute.
aye.
Okay, so now, Angus, do you want us to go through the whole list on page 69 and up or down on all those guys?
Yes, that would be helpful. And I do have one new piece of information on the electric vehicle charging stations. Why don't I share that now, and then we can go down the list. So
Okay.
I did, yeah, the packet summarizes the conversation with Department of Revenue. Attorney said he was comfortable with the 3-year pre-purchase of a warranty, as long as the warranty is in place when the units initially come online. He did raise a concern about anything beyond 3 years, because that is kind of the cap on contractual obligations that you can enter without town meeting approval. So he referred me to the Inspector General's legal. So I left a message with them last week. I got a call back earlier today. And on the question of a 5-year prepay, the Inspector General said, if you have town meeting authorization to do so, they're okay with that. So it sounds to me, and I haven't had a chance this afternoon to confer with Mike, so Mike, I'll put you on the spot, but it sounds to me like if the motion on this portion of the budget amendment explicitly authorizes a 5-year warranty, and if that's known to the voters and they approve it, that they do have that authority. The voters do. We don't, but the voters do have that authority to enter a 5-year pre-purchase of a warranty.
That's my understanding, is that you can get town meeting authorization to go beyond the 3 years. So 5 years would be okay, if the town meeting votes it that way.
Okay, great.
Okay. Okay, first article that we haven't gone over yet is Article 5, the DPW plow dump truck that we deferred from last spring. The total amount is 240,000. This was again passed over at last town meeting, but the CIC did approve that, and the Board of Selectmen were in favor of this in the past, but just we deferred on it, mostly because the DPW director felt that it was something that we could defer, but now because of the long lag time to actually getting one of these vehicles and potential cost increases if we wait longer, that he feels that we should go for it now.
I'd make a motion that I would approve this. That's what you're looking for, Archie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 6, this is the relatively simple from the fire chief. He wants to extend the sunset date for the purchase of the fire rescue vehicle. So it's not going to change the pricing. It's just that we want to be able to make sure that the vehicle is finished and can be done before the money it goes back to free cash. So pretty simple. I would make a motion to approve extend the sunset date 1 year through FY 2022 for the fire rescue vehicle.
Kemper, second.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
One point, Archie,
Okay,
and Casey will bring it up, is that actually it's adopted under the motion under Article 18 of the annual town meeting. Because she'll tell you, we don't vote on the articles, we vote on the
Okay.
motion of the articles. So we can just adjust that to say that as adopted on the motion pursuant to Article 18 of the annual town meeting.
okay.
And the other thing is that with these motions, did you want to name funding sources for these?
I suppose.
You did name one for number 5. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So that's for,
Well, the source is right there on the piece of paper that's on 70. It's capital stabilization.
Okay. I didn't know if you want to make that in the motion or not.
Well, and Mike, we've just got the articles in front of us. We haven't presented the board with the motions yet.
No. They usually when they vote, they suggest,
Oh, right.
what the
Yep.
vote down,
Yeah.
they suggest a funding source.
and we don't know what the sunset date on the purchase of the dump truck is either.
Actually, I know FinCom did make a recommendation on that, so if we pull up their minutes,
Yeah, I think it was 2022.
I think it was 2 or 3 years out. They gave them plenty of time.
I think it was 2022.
Yeah, end of 23, actually. I'm
Okay.
looking on page 85 of the Selectmen packet. Toward
Okay.
the top.
Okay, someone want to amend that motion to include those two facts?
So moved.
Okay.
I'm fading
Okay.
fast, just so you know. I have
So
a tremendous headache.
sunset date is end of FY 23 then? Is
For
that
the dump truck, yes, yep,
And the source is stabilization. Correct?
correct.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correct.
Angus, do you want to give us so the Article 4 is a Water Department article. Now here you've got TBD. What do you want to give us a little more information on that?
Yeah, if you look on page 64 of the packet in the draft warrant, that's got the actual amount that's proposed.
So is that the up-to-date information?
Yep, the 14,920 is the correct info. And so this is to do with employee turnover, and the person who left didn't have insurance, so he was just getting the stipend, which is a modest amount. So that was all that was in this year's water budget. So the amount 14,920 would be in the event that we hire a new water operator, and they begin November 1st, and they're on a full premium, top of the line family plan. The 14,920 would represent 8 months of the town share of that family plan. So it's a conservative number.
It's a hopeful number.
This is sort of just
We
a
get somebody by November.
kind of thing then. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry, I could, what?
This is sort of a just in case kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a hopeful number though, too, thinking, hoping that we find somebody by November, that we're able to fill that position.
Yeah, it's optimistic,
Yeah,
but we did have a couple of new applicants come in, so we're
Great.
keeping our fingers crossed.
That's
Okay.
good. Okay. Anyone want to make a motion on that?
oh, okay, sure. Move to, what's this? Oh, that's from Water Department revenues, okay. Yeah, so I've moved that we would, for the article to be $14,920 for insurance for potential new staff for the Water Department. And it would be funded by Water Department revenue.
Second. Further discussion, all in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker,
Final one is, zoning amendments. I'd rather not get into those. We've gone through them, before last spring, and we did it in the, actually, this summer. We went over them again. I don't think we need to rehash the verbiage of those, or just whether we want to add a zoning amendment article to a special town meeting that we're trying to have short. That's to me, that's the issue. So I will make a motion so that we get discussion going and get it answered quickly. I'd make a motion to approve Article 7, a planning board zoning amendment changes.
Second. Kemper.
All in favor?
Aye.
Parker,
Archibald, aye. I hope
And
it
that's
goes.
what, and that's with the caveat from the chairman of the planning board that it's going to go fast.
Yeah,
So if any materials they need to get out early to maybe help us, any questions, that would be very helpful.
yeah.
I will say that back in the spring, I did work with Leah on the appendix for the zoning amendments, and I do think it's a different format that they agreed to use on my recommendation. I do think it's pretty clear. It kind of goes through step by step what's proposed and what the rationale is. So I'm hoping if people, read the FinCom booklet this fall, that I hope Ray is right. It will be smooth.
Let's see, where are we? We did Article J, update on the status of the designer contract for the Soldiers and Sailors building. Mike, how do we stand on that?
Well, it's been pretty tough. I think that, basically with the election, it just seems to be a time sink on my office. It's very busy there. And maybe we should recommend putting this out to, outside counsel so they could help us on it, because it's going to take, in order to do it right, it's going to take a lot of time. And what happens is that in my case, I just get interrupted. You need to have some dedicated time to it without interruption. Because I mean, we could just put something together quickly, but I don't think that would do well for the town.
So if it's my understanding, they kind of sent over some type of a contract that we could mark up. Are you not happy with that?
That's correct, but even that time, going through it, it's the architect's contract, and we did go over it. There's a lot of it that I would, I feel I would like to have some, more expertise in going through these contracts with.
So would that be the base, Mike? That we
Sure.
would say, that would be the base with all the recommendations that we have on that, and then tell them, hey, this is the base, and what do you think? And give us mock up, this particular thing to make sure that you protect the town, obviously. Something like that, or I don't want them to start from scratch.
Well, no.
Mike, would you then have to go over it a second time yourself, right? Or
Well, it'd be much easier if, especially for somebody who is a little bit more familiar with these contracts, to basically point it out, and all I would have to do is review it as opposed to draft it.
Okay.
It's a big difference.
Okay.
And I would like to think that they would send over like a little cheat sheet to tell us what it's all about, rather than, you know what I mean, us reading it, but then like have some type of conclusion page of this is what they did, and that's the reason why they did it, and this is how it, protects the town. Could we use the money that's already appropriated for the sailors and soldiers' homes for that?
Yes.
Okay, that was quick. Okay, that was good. Perfect. So I would make a motion that we would do that immediately. This has gone on to, I'm getting too many questions. People expected this building cycle as in being like spring. We appropriated the money. I think people are starting to get out now with this COVID and realizing that they don't see anything happening over there. So I don't want to lose the momentum or lose anything. I was so happy that it passed. We just need to get this thing moving. So I would make a motion that to go with Mike's recommendation, and but who is going to be the point person on that? If it goes to Angus, or do y'all the one who sends it, or how does that work? I would say you would, Mike, correct?
I'd work with Angus just to get, initial conversation, but then it'd be through me.
Okay. Any way we can get this, get it started this week?
That would be preferable.
Yeah,
So,
no problem.
did Glenn, did you make a motion?
Yeah. That motion that was to go with Mike's recommendation that we use outside counsel or outside, I'm not sure if even outside counsel is the right word, but outside, to contract with somebody to write this for the town.
Okay.
Outside review of the contract, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and modification is necessary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'd second that, but we'll have some discussion. Right.
Yeah, okay. So,
Time to discuss.
yeah.
So
So, Mike, do you have somebody in mind that this seems like a kind of a niche thing? So do you have somebody in mind, or?
I would think that we would work with KP again, as we've done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike,
I have not spoken with them about it, but I know they've got, a deep bench, and they have people who specialize certainly in contract for public construction projects.
Okay, well, that seems reasonable. Okay.
So, Mike, when you responded affirmatively to Glenn's question about whether money that was already allocated for soldiers and sailors for that project, I'm just wondering if, how much is this likely to cost? And, as we start to pay for things that we hadn't anticipated paying for out of those funds, how does that impact the long term?
I wouldn't expect that it would be that dramatic a deal, especially if you're dealing with somebody who deals with these all the time.
Yeah.
That they would be able to point out the most important things for the representation of the town. And, as for things that are unique to the town, we can put it in. It's just the protections, the standard legal protections that we should have in place.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously, if you had somebody who has done a lot of these, that isn't, I wouldn't expect it to be a tremendous time sink. And we could obviously talk to them and get it, and one thing that Angus has done very efficiently is always talk to them about, a budget and know upfront,
right. Okay.
about what we have. And I would expect that would be the case here too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's actually just to interject, that's actually written into our agreement with them, that anytime I request service, I provide the initial scope, what we need. They give me a number, and they don't start billing until I've approved their number. So that's how we manage costs with the outside council.
Right. I saw Ann O'Sullivan's in her picture's up now. She sent a text wondering if I think you had something to ask about. Is Archie? Is that you being the chair? Is that we can take questions, right?
Go ahead, Ann.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm really happy to hear that Mike, I know he's incredibly busy with the COVID-19 thing and with the presidential elections. And I just thought it would be expeditious of the community to let Mike choose someone who could work this contract through, because the way this was presented to the town last fall was that this was incredibly important to be done timely, and there was a year that was going to go by. And I'm concerned that if we don't get something in line quickly, then, you know, your next town meeting, you guys are going to lose some credibility, because all of a sudden it's going to be like, wait, you just said this is going to get done, and now a year has gone by and it's not getting done, and how much more is this going to cost? We're going to lose support for this restoration. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys are willing to let Mike use some specialized expertise to just get this thing moving. So
Angus, when we're talking to KP Law, I would agree with everything what Ann just said, first of all. And second, could you ask them to, you know, hurry up on this? Obviously,
Oh, yeah.
Don't give us
Yeah.
you know.
no, it has to be, honestly, it has to be something that we need some definitive steps. We need to get Lynn under contract. And I know Peter Ringenbach and Mike had worked on the contract, and then I understand Mike got really busy, and this is like crazy times, but if we can
What
get,
I would do,
go ahead.
what I would do
I'm sorry.
too is I'm sorry, Ann, it's Glenn. Make sure that we send KP or whomever, I would assume it's going to be KP, you know, what Mike's done up to this point. I think maybe Ann or Peter, I know, has given some his expertise of that particular contract, what should be in it, what shouldn't be in it. Give them everything, so you know they have someplace where they can start from, rather than them reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like 80% of the way there. We just need to get this finalized and at least get something moving so that we protect that building, so that we're going to go through another winter with this, and that's really sad. But we cannot possibly go back to this community and say, oh, blah, 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 now we need another $200,000 because we dragged our feet because of COVID, because of whatever. People don't care about that. People just want to know that the building's going to be saved. And
Yeah,
we had
that
a
won't
plan.
work. That
Yeah.
won't work. I agree with you, Ann. That's not.
No,
So
thanks.
if we could, we have a meeting on Monday that potentially with the FinCom about something totally different, obviously. But if we could get an update on Monday, hopefully just a brief 5-minute update, just so we know which direction this is going in.
Sure.
That would be, I think, important.
Okay.
Great.
So the
Thanks,
plan,
guys.
so the plan, I just want to make sure I understand the plan so everybody understands the plan. So tomorrow at some point, Mike's going to meet with Angus and get the contact, get whatever we need to get. Mike's going to put everything together tomorrow, and we're going to send it over to KP Law at some point tomorrow for them to start working on it.
Correct.
Right.
Thank
Makes a
you.
lot
Good.
makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate this.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
work on that committee, Ann.
I'm not the only one.
No, you're not, but thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Night. Thanks, Ann.
Okay, do we need a motion, or just we're all in agreement? Or, I don't,
No, I think we're good.
okay. Next item is potential meeting. So next Monday, you want to have a joint meeting, Angus?
I'd like to just poll the board. I've heard back from a couple of FinCom members. I just sent the email just a couple of hours ago, and so far heard from 2 out of 5 that they're available. I did also speak with Casey. She's available next Monday. So it's not confirmed, but you know, if we can get ideally all 5 of the FinCom members. I know Nathan is doing a lot with you know, youth you know, Cub Scouts, and he might even be doing some coaching. So I don't know, but if we can get all 5, that would be ideal. So I don't know if we're ready to book it, but I just polled so if all 3 of you are available, once I'll see all the FinCom members tomorrow night if I don't hear from them before then.
So what time?
And
What time? Yeah.
what time works best? Is earlier better, like a 6 o'clock start?
Well, Well, we need the FinCom, so I guess we would,
If they need to wait till 8, it's not gonna be long. We only got half a dozen articles here. Whatever works.
and that's something I would try, I'm glad when you said that, Archie, about not long. I would say to them too, to whomever, but hey, whatever time our starting time, it's an hour. You know what I mean? That's it, it's an hour. So maybe they'll say yes to that. So we're gonna shut off after an hour. So we need to come prepared. And it's not gonna be any more than an hour, but we just need everybody in the same room, so to speak.
Mhm.
So I'm available at any time on Monday. So I'm flexible.
Yeah, next Monday is fine for me. So whatever works for them, Angus.
Okay, we'll have it pinned down within within about 24 hours from now. And Rick, I think you were saying you're okay Monday too, right?
Yeah, no, I blocked out from 6 to 10, so I'm not planning on using it all.
Okay.
Okay, next.
Did you
item-
want to look at the other dates, Archie?
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
And especially I'd ask Mike to look at, this is page 91, Mike, of the packet. If you'd look at that November 2nd, I'm assuming that date probably is not a good one for you.
No.
Why? What's
Oh,
going on in
actually-
November?
Well, no, actually, if it's at night, that should be fine.
You might need to bow out just because I know you have an early day the next day, but
Will have an early day the next day, and I'll have a busy day the day before, but not the night.
I thought that's when you're gonna start doing your shots just to make sure that you're getting a good mood.
No.
for the next
That's
morning.
that's after the polls
That's-
close.
Oh,
It's after 8.
Okay.
Oh, you
And
mean
given the
it's
right
just-
results, we'll all be drinking shots of one kind or
It's-
another.
It's just a day
Exactly.
after Halloween recovery.
probably at different times, but yeah.
Some portion of the populace will be doing considerable amounts of alcohol. We just
Right.
don't know which.
Right.
Okay, never mind. I was gonna be fresh, but never mind. Okay, I'm gonna put myself on mute before I get myself in trouble.
So does anybody have any problems with any of these days as listed on page 91?
No,
No.
they're all good for me.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good. At this point, they're good.
Okay, that's good.
Actually, the one comment I would make is that one around Christmas. I know there was a little caveat there in the schedule, and if we didn't meet 2 days after Christmas, I wouldn't argue.
What day is Christmas on again?
The 25th.
Well, I know that. I meant day, not date.
It's
I've
a
already-
Friday. It's a Friday this year.
It's a Friday.
So it can't be 2 days after because that would be Sunday.
Yeah,
So
3 days
3
after. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's, I guess we could pencil that in for December 28th, or if you want to go ahead and push it to the following Monday, January 4th. We always do have a lot to do right coming out of that new year.
My suggestion would be that's like vacation week too. Everybody's off of school that week, right? Or has they
Right.
changed because of this scheduling thing? My kids aren't in public school anymore, so I don't know. But I would say no, just to give everybody a break through the Christmas.
And to give
Holiday.
everybody else a break. Yeah, so you don't have to schedule a
Mhm.
meeting to deal with it, Angus. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's easy for us. So, I mean for me.
You don't
Yeah,
wanna-
I mean, we-
You don't want to be doing stuff on Christmas week. No.
Not
But,
again.
but you
yeah.
have to promise if we don't have a meeting, I'm not going to see that car there. Like when I drove by this weekend and the car was there late in one night or whatever it was. So you have to promise you're not going to be there, or
Yeah,
at least
We
late.
skip December 28th, and what we could do actually is, if that went to January 4th, and then instead of it being the 11th, 25th, it could be the 4th, the 18th, and so forth.
Fine,
Just kind of get it back on a.
fine.
It is nice. I mean, last year, I think we had a meeting the first Monday after the new year.
And that worked well for me because that is such an important time of year to kind of really get things started with the town meeting cycle. So
Okay.
maybe if we scrap the 11th and 25th and instead go January 4th, skip the 28th and go January 4th. And I don't know if it'd be the 18th. I feel like that might be a holiday, but it would be maybe the 19th.
Yeah, that's probably MLK Day.
Yeah, the 18th is Martin Luther King Day. So,
Or we can do the
maybe
19th.
if we just pin down the dates from now to the end of December and then do this again,
Okay,
Wow. So we'll say everything through December 14th is confirmed and everything after that we'll revisit. But that gives us plenty to work with for future planning.
Next.
Next is just a couple of brief updates. The paid school fire alarm. There's been a lot of work. Wayne has put in quite a lot of work, meeting with the school, meeting with Children's Castle. We learned a couple of things about this project. It's a longer project than we'd realized. It's a 12 to 16 week. So it's a major project management issue. But Wayne's been terrific, and we executed a contract earlier today. There was a cost premium because the work cannot be done while school is in session and while the Children's Castle is in operation. So Wayne convened multiple meetings among the school and Children's Castle and the vendor, really got into the details. And so it was scheduled for, they're going to do 4 p.m. to midnight shifts to avoid the operations. And there was just one small piece that had to be taken out because of the extra cost with the second shifts, but it's nothing that is going to affect the function of the system. But there will be an additional capital proposal for next spring, I think on the order of 15 to 20,000, which is going to be the final control box, which is going to remain in the Children's Castle for now. It was intended to go into the school, so there's going to have to be a separate funding article to get that final control box back into the school. But basically, the project's moving forward pretty quickly, which is really good because it's. I know everyone knows the importance of those fire alarm. The second update on the CARES Act.
hang on, Angus, one second.
Sure.
Bottom of page 94. It's just a clerical thing, but it says the contract will.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
2020. Got to change
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Good. All right.
See, I read it.
Great. Good catch. Next one, the CARES Act. We just got the guidance a little less than 2 weeks ago in terms of what these quarterly reports require. And I think we're going to be in good shape because we've been pretty diligent right along on tracking the costs as we go. But that is due this Friday, so that is going to take a chunk of time this week. I honestly haven't really dug into it other than to look at the guidance when it first came in. And then I spent a little bit of time earlier today, but we haven't started to put the report together. So that's going to take some time. But what we'll do is include the report that we file in the next packet as informational. So that way you'll have all of the breakdown of the CARES Act expenses that we've documented. But that's due this Friday, and that's the same deadline for everyone across the Commonwealth. So a lot of towns I know are scrambling to get that done. We've got the MassWorks quarterly report due next week, and there's a draft in your packet. That's pretty straightforward. We just want to show progress every quarter, and I think we're in good shape with that. There has been some recent correspondence late last week and earlier today between the design engineer and the conservation commissions in both communities on the question of whether the portion of the connecting the reservoir is considered river for the purpose of Riverfront Protection Act, or Rivers Protection Act, and they got the opinion from the Newbury Port Conservation Agent that it is not considered river there. And Bert is he's probably reviewed that earlier this evening with his commission. I don't know if they got to an answer on that, but that's something that's been presented to them as the engineers are moving ahead with the environmental design and wanting to make sure that they know all of the permits that will be required. So that's going ahead. So we'll, unless you have any comments, I'll go ahead and file that quarterly report in the form that you have in front of you. The green communities, this isn't due for a little while, but we had a really good meeting, I thought, last week with myself, Rick, and Annie. And Rick has done a terrific job, as he always does, organizing what the data needs are. And I want to thank him for that because it's really appreciated. I'd love to get to the point where we can do more of that in-house, but as he has a front row seat on at this point, you know, it's just really not in the cards. So his help in telling us what needs to be done makes my job and Annie's job a lot more manageable to make sure we get that data rather than having to figure out what we need and get it. So I think we're going to be in good shape to get that filed timely. Yeah, so those are all just updates on just some of what's keeping us busy.
So, anyone have, I guess our next meeting, we're gonna try and just basically do the minimum, maybe like, Glenn's comment about maybe just a brief update on the contract review on the car post, but let's keep keep everything else as a short meeting with the moderator and the FinCom, and I don't think there's anything else that's timely that we absolutely positively have to do next Monday. So that would be my comment.
Can I ask a question about that contract? Does that have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen or approved by the Chief Procurement Officer and you, Angus, to send out to that architect? So because I don't want us to be dragging it down either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
Because
it's just the Chief Procurement Officer. Yeah. Yeah, because
Okay, good.
the board had approved the designer selection procedures last fall, and that's called out that basically
That's right,
the
yeah.
procurement officer.
Well, Glenn, if you want to take the time to read through it and put notes in and comment on everything.
Nope, no, thank you. But I appreciate you thinking of me, Rick.
Yeah, okay. Just watch Netflix.
No, but I just want to make sure. So it could even be, you could be telling us on next Monday that this KP, had somebody waiting there looking for something to do, and this is all done and sent over to the architect. You know what I mean? Who knows?
It could be.
Okay, good. Thank you. Is this time for things for future agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Contracts, and then contracts. I said it last time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind an executive session starting. We have Angus's, we have, the other two, police now and dispatch. And so I wouldn't mind starting on these things sooner than later. I don't know how we would want to handle Angus's. I would actually like to have, if we could, our next really meeting, not this Monday, kind of talk about how we're going to conduct that, because it's kind of weird that, you're always in the meetings. You know what I mean, Angus? So
Right.
so we would have to have one maybe without you to talk about it. I don't know. Maybe why don't you and Archie kind of talk how you want to handle it, and then kind of if we could talk about that, just a procedural point at least, at our next meeting.
That's a good point, Glenn. Yeah.
At our next meeting as in next Monday.
No, I mean,
No, I
like
think
our
2
real
weeks out.
scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, like our real scheduled meeting.
Okay, that's better. Okay.
Okay, that would be my recommendation. Contracts.
And Angus, did you related to contracts, again, did you get any data from the rental people?
I sent out the request and put together, after you and I met, whenever that was, I think on Friday, I put together an Excel kind of template that they could just populate with the data of, pre-COVID, COVID impacts and projected. So I sent out that data request with a request that I get everything back from them no later than a week from today. And that'll give me, next week to basically analyze that and to come into the meeting on October 5th with some recommendations.
That's good. Okay, so maybe on that meeting, we could talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be ready for a conversation at 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
Another thing, this is more of an informational thing. It's one of these hurry up and wait stuff, but have we heard anything about the 40B?
No, and which is fine with us, but yeah, it's
no,
still
it's fine with
pending
us,
is pending with Mass Housing. So until they act, there's nothing more that can happen. But we should remind ourselves that, if and when that does happen, the clock starts ticking immediately.
So, I mean, do they have a timetable where they have to make a decision, or could it sit there for a year, or do they have to?
It could sit there indefinitely. It's not a regulatory review, so there is no specified timeline.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. A motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.